Good morning, and welcome to another week of Journey with Christ. I'm your host, Mark Mitchell, a preaching minister here at the Park Avenue Church of Christ here in Charleston, West Virginia. I am joined, not as usual, but filling in for Steve Fox, Sean Patrick. How you doing today, Sean?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. You know.
Yeah, I just got off work. I'm sorry to keep you here till
Oh, I just got here a little while ago. I mean, you know, I was doing other things, so I didn't come up as early today. So, but no, hey, I'm glad you able to step in and fill in. Maybe I can get one of these times get you doing this and operating all this stuff, and and I can get you to fill in maybe more often.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been here.
Yeah, it has. It has. Steve has been feeling much better lately, and so we don't have the episodes, and so it's great that he is. But it kind of like takes, it kind of alleviates you filling in. But it's summertime. You'll have to fill in some. Susie's got her heart set on doing a little traveling this summer.
I understand completely.
I do. And so, all right. This thing did this to me yesterday. Well, we are going to continue this week in the parables. And if you would like to turn your Bibles to Matthew 13, we're going to begin reading in verse 31, the parable of the mustard seed and the yeast. I'm going to go ahead and let you, Sean, go ahead and read that down first 31 through 35, and then we'll go into it.
Okay. He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest of all seed, yet when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds come and perch in its branches. He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed into about 60 pounds of flour until it worked all through the dough. Jesus spoke all these things to the crowd in parables. He did not say anything to them without using a parable. So was fulfilled what was spoken through the prophet. I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter things hidden since the creation of the world.
You know, one of the most amazing things to me through this, especially Matthew, is the analogies that Jesus parallels the kingdom and these various things, which in truth I think sometimes we miss this comparison. How does a mustard seed, how does that compare to the kingdom? You know, I mean, I've heard people talk about, you know, use it as our lives, you know. This small little seed that's planted in our heart grows and becomes, you know, but that's not really what it's talking about. It's talking about something totally different, about the fact that the circumstances by which Jesus is giving the analogy is the fact that this kingdom that he's talking about is going to begin really, really small.
Yeah. You see, when we went over the book of Acts, it was that way. It started out very small, and it just spread.
I mean, it just took over.
Well, I mean, if you even think about it now, in society, probably all over the world, the Christian, though it's I'm sure been diluted and whatever, but still the Christian move at the time is rooted in about everything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people today, our society has no concept how most of everything that we do and most of our laws, most of our behaviors can be traced back to Judeo-Christian understandings. I mean, they think a court system was brought on by, you know, rights was brought in by, no, all those things are functions of the faith of Jesus Christ and the people who this century, right here, that Jesus spoke to, who made the supreme sacrifice, a lot of them, dying for their faith, which made such a huge impact upon the society. And you think about it, Jesus is using a proposition by which God created seed, time, and harvest, okay? Which is a fundamental operation by which God created. God created this program, if you will, or process. Jesus is using that same process to explain what you and I can't always see, so that we recognize it. Because one important part, I think of this sometimes, this little parable, is the fact that the seed is powerful if it's the real seed.
Yes.
You know, you go and start diluting these seeds down or manipulating the seeds, I don't think you're going to get the harvest that you would have under Jesus' seed.
Yeah, I think you guys talked about it earlier with the seeds, and it was about the different soils.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a good soil and you take care of it, it will expand. It'll become a great plant or great fruit or whatever you're producing.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, it just spreads, because that is the part of the second part of that parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a yeast the woman took and mixed into about 60 pounds of flour until it worked all through the dough. The spreading that happens because of what God creates. God created the mustard seed. God created the yeast. And in that vein, these processes that God created, He can use and make. I mean, he turned 60 pounds into a flour. And I read in one commentary that that amount of bread would feed 100 people.
Yeah, that one kind of made me laugh a little bit, because my wife makes bread occasionally, and we're talking like 3 or 4 cups of flour.
Yeah.
And when she puts the yeast in, and she's got a bread machine that'll do it, and then she sets it to the side, and we go, and the next thing you know, an hour later, boom,
big old loaf of bread.
It's puffed up, ready to go.
Yeah.
And I kind of laughed. I was like, 3 or 4 cups. I was like, imagine 60 pounds.
I know. Yeah. I mean, this would feed 100 people, and into Jews, and to the period of time, 100 meant, it's one of those number things. It meant complete. Sort of like where we get our expression 100%, but yeah, it would have meant to those reading it that kind of exponential growth would be almost expected out of yeast. If it didn't produce that, what would our reaction be to the yeast?
It's bad.
It's bad yeast. That's right.
It's bad.
So,
and what's great about these parables is what Christ talks about is people are going to understand it, because they're going to understand about farming. They're going to understand about cooking. They're going to understand about fishing, which just comes up later on. They're going to understand what he's. They may not understand what he's putting together,
mm-hmm.
but they're going to understand the things he's trying to pull and put together with.
Yeah, and again, it's amazing to the point of how he ties this to the kingdom of heaven. Meaning, okay, this yeast is going to have the same kind of effect in the bread that the kingdom of heaven will have in the communities in which these people live. It's going to spread. It's going to get bigger. And it's going to impact a lot of people.
And it did exactly what he said.
It did. It did. It was pretty amazing.
It is. It's really amazing when you think about it, how it started so small and just expanded. It may have not been all the right way, but it's still, you could probably barely go anywhere where at least the word God and Christ hasn't at least been taught or known or at least understood. They might not know exactly what it is, but most people have heard the name or at least can put it together.
Absolutely. And we now live in a world today that if you don't have a Bible, I mean, it's the number one bestseller, and it has been. And apologies. It's been the number one bestseller, and so it's out there for everyone to see and everyone to know, and everybody pretty much knows what's behind the story, you know. So yeah, it's like you mentioned earlier. It has grown to such a place that, I mean, we wouldn't have schools, universities, hospitals. We wouldn't have anything like a lot of our laws unless Jesus Christ had come and done what he did.
Exactly.
We would be living under martial law by whoever. I'll read the next one and you go into details. I'm going to skip on down the parable of the weeds explained and go down to verse 44. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went out and sold all he had and bought that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it.
Yeah, when I read these two, the first thing I think of is value. Christ is almost talking about the value of what the kingdom is, and it's like a treasure. If you find something of great value, and in the first parable, a person finds it into a field, well, he knows it has incredible value. And it doesn't matter what money he has, he's going to sell it. He's going to give everything else because he knows there's nothing more valuable than what's in that field. And the better one, I think, is the second one. And he talks about the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. And he finds one of great value. And then he talks about a merchant. Well, this person knows exactly what the value of this pearl is. So when he sees this pearl, he knows its value. The other people might not know, but he knows this has unbelievable value. So he's like, I'm going to give everything I have because I know that is what's valuable. That's a great treasure.
And without a doubt, I think we lose some of the meaning of just how important that part is that you're just talking about. How many people do we know who have quit going to a church because someone hurt their feelings?
Yes.
Who have walked away and done this and done that because, it was inconvenient. Jesus is talking about a concept that when you grasp it and understand what it is, and I'm glad you said what you did, that merchant, because this merchant recognized the value of what was in front of him. I wonder how many people walked by that pearl and didn't realize the value. And today we have many people walking by and not recognizing the value of the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven. Because if they did, they would be like the merchant and the man who found the gold, the treasure in the field. They would do everything they could and sell everything they had in order to obtain what's right there.
Yeah, it's almost like Christ saying, if you only knew the value of what I'm offering,
yeah,
you would all this other stuff that you're worrying about or that you're fighting for, that you're going after, it wouldn't matter one bit.
It wouldn't mean a thing, would it?
No.
And how many people that's one of my favorite lines out of Romans 1 is, how many people have exchanged the truth of God for a lie, believing the fact that wealth and fame and popularity and the good life, you know, sexual indulgence and all the various things that people chase after, which has no meaning whatsoever, and walk right by the most valuable pearl available to man.
Yeah. It's a small parable, but it has so much meaning. It's it's just full of it, and it's just it's really incredible to when you think about it, because Christ is almost like, this is what you should be going after. This is what has value. And like I said before, the other things that you're sitting there, you're fighting over, you're grabbing for, it has really no significance compared to what I'm offering here.
Yeah, and you know, the first two parables talk about the effect of the kingdom, and the next two basically talk about our response to that kingdom,
Yes.
what it means, and what it's capable of doing, and the response required by each one of us. And I know sometimes people say, you know, Jesus, you know, he just was a great guy, and you know, and he was, but if you miss some of these things, Jesus is basically selling, you need to sell everything you got and come after what I got.
Everything. Because it doesn't matter.
Yep, doesn't matter.
But you're right what you were saying, because Chuck White told me when I first got baptized, he was shaking my hand, congratulating me. He goes, but I'll just let you know, he goes, the hard part's coming. And I didn't really understand, but now the longer it goes, I understand, because things are going to happen in life, and it's going to test you to what's the most important thing.
Yeah. Is this the value that
Yeah, is this what you want to put? Is this the value you're looking for?
And I tell people all the time, it's not that, I'm not going to tell you that when Jesus said, pick up your cross and follow after me, he wasn't being figurative. He was being literal.
Yes.
So there's going to be moments where that burden of your faith, and I don't necessarily mean it's a burden, but there are going to be times that it feels like a heavy cross carrying it, and it's going to get hard. But you still can't forget what the value of what this is worth.
And that's what I think when you read the letters of the New Testament writers, they're all basically saying the same, just hold on.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
It's worth it.
Because what Christ has offered is far better than what you're going to be going through. And the people, what they were going through at the time was pretty harsh.
Yeah.
It was brutality that was happening to the Christians.
Death.
And
some burned alive.
Tortured, burned alive. Whatever you could probably put into the sentence probably happened to them.
Yes.
And now we may not be going through that type of persecution, but where the world's changed, now it kind of is offering other things to pull you away. Even though it may not be what it was before, it's kind of maybe switched, but it's still, they're trying to offer you different things that say, oh, this is much better than why go through that when you can have everything you want?
Yeah. You know, what is it, the old saying, you know, live today, don't worry about tomorrow.
Live today, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. I guess I'm going to do the parable of the net, and we're going to probably end with that one, but it's also the one that's probably a little bit tougher. Once again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was let down into the lake and caught all kinds of fish. When it was full, the fishermen pulled it up on the shore. Then they sat down and collected the good fish in baskets, but threw the bad away. This is how it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come and separate the wicked from the righteous and throw them into the blazing furnace, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Have you understood all these things? Jesus asked. Yes, they replied. He said to them, therefore, every teacher of the law who has become a disciple in the kingdom of heaven is like the owner of a house who brings out of his storeroom new treasures as well as old.
This by far to me was one of the hardest one when you told me which one.
Well, the first part's not, it's pretty easy.
Self-explanatory. But then he says the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was let down. And guess what did he do? He caught a lot of fish. And it was different kinds of fish. And when they pulled up, well, the good's sorted and the bad. And the bad is, the good is sorted and the bad is thrown into the fire. And the angels will come and separate. This kind of mimics when you all were talking about Revelation, the end part of Revelation. Mm-hmm. There was going to be a time in the burning lake.
Yep.
This is kind of, to me, mimics that. And what you kept saying over, he who has ears hear, listen. And this is kind of what he's saying to me, because this is a moment where, okay, you need to listen to this.
Yeah.
You need to be careful, because everybody's going to come, but there's going to be a separation, and one's going to be the book of life, and the other is going to be tossed into the furnace or the lake of sulfur, whatever, the burning lake of sulfur, whatever you want to call it. And then he even talks about there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's going to be a terrible time for some, the wicked, the one who decides to continue in that way.
Yeah, there's a definite culling process. Anybody who's ever fooled around with certain a farmer, a rancher, whoever's operated a place where animals are produced in order to provide food to people. Even shepherds would go through the good sheep and the bad sheep, and they would separate them because they didn't want them to intermingle or whatever. But anyway, all of this process, everyone recognizes the difference between a good piece of a good food and bad food. Everybody out there has a favorite fish that they like that tastes really, really good, and then they've got one they might not like. I know some people who they don't like catfish, but they love trout.
Yes.
Though trout is a better quality fish, you can still eat catfish. But what Jesus is bringing up is the fact that everyone will recognize the difference. Even they recognized the difference. The point is, do you want to, sort of like the moment in Isaiah, don't be those kind of people that call what's bad as good. Don't become like that. Recognize the fact that good is good and bad is bad, and stick with it, because I think we have to get that in order to get the next part of this parable, where he talks about, therefore every teacher of the law who became a disciple in the kingdom of heaven is the like of an owner of a house who brings out of his storeroom new treasure as well as old. Everyone out there should recognize much of the principles that came out of what Jesus is, I believe, referencing to, their understanding of what was it about the law. What did it represent? Was it evidence to prove that you got to come into heaven, or you got kicked out? Or did it present what looked like good fish or looked like bad fish? It was a vehicle, if you will, a magnifying glass, to shine on the different species and what looked like good and what looked like bad. And and that's what, and I know you talked about Sunday morning in Romans chapter 4 about what one of the purposes of the law was to teach us what was bad and what was good. In the same way that when the angels grab the net and it's full of fish, they know what's good and they know what's bad. Make sure you do too,
And what's kind of scary about it is who Christ is talking to. He's talking about the teachers.
Yeah.
And I heard someone say, the enemies, if you read the Bible, the enemies of Christ really, as far as like the Rome, they're barely in it. It's the Jews and his friends that are a lot of the times the issues what he's trying to get to. But yeah, he's talking to the teachers, and that's the teachers of the law, and that's the kind of the scary part is be careful of what you're putting out there.
Well, I mean, basically, from Romans to Revelation, basically is talking about, okay, how did you understand the law, and how did you understand what we're doing now? Do you get it? Do you get the fact that there is a new way of perception? Not that we've changed the standards, but they're looked at differently, and you should be able to recognize them, because according to Jesus, you couldn't recognize them under the law, because there they were, the Pharisees, supposed to be the most high and mighty bunch of people, and Jesus calls them as dead people walking around in coffins.
Yeah, he was rough with them.
It was. You're right. It was a tough moment, but how many people? How often, and how much through our history? And I'm just talking about the last 50 years. Have people made certain issues more important than the person?
Yes.
And turned what should have been very easy, because we just got through doing the wheat and tares. There's a lot of people who want to jump out of the soil and become a servant to God and go out there and start pulling weeds. And Jesus tells them, no.
That's not our job.
That's not your job. Stay in your row.
Because in your intention of pulling out the bad weeds, you could also pull out the good.
Inevitably, you will.
Yes. So that's going to have a backfire, and we've seen it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the division. We now live in a nation that is completely divided. But now it doesn't lay at the feet of just Christians. It lays at the feet of our society now, is because it's so divisive by nature. But at the same time, I can go look at churches who won't speak to one another. You can go into towns and churches will be within 2 or 3 blocks of one another and have the same name on the outside the door. And at one time they were part of the same church, but they split.
I talked with Steve one time about that. I was like, does it make sense that in this valley, I mean, I don't know if there's as many, but there was quite a few churches of Christ. And the attendance, and I was like, and I don't believe there's that many because of the attendance factor.
Mm-mm.
And it really wasn't. So it's all it takes is an issue.
That's right.
And then we're going somewhere else. And we need to come back together, and these divisions that have caused, to try to rectify that. I don't know if it's possible, but I believe that we could do better than what we're doing at this period of time.
I think you're right. But our struggle is going to be sorting out what's good and what's bad.
Exactly. But all we can really do is individually do what we can ourselves.
That's right.
And it starts with with yourself. And especially this day and time, I've heard a lot of so-called experts or leaders of the faith, and I think some humbling needs to be done to some people, because we need to look at ourselves and try to figure out that we don't have it all figured out.
No.
And if you read this and you believe that you have it all figured out, you need to read it again.
Yeah. I don't think there's ever a moment. In fact, I've shared this many times, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. The more I read, the less I know. So it doesn't. Let me rephrase that. It's not like the more I read, the less I know necessarily. It's what the more I become. My dependence becomes greater on God, on the grace of God.
Yes.
Because my ability to be good. Because when I look at myself honestly, all I have is the grace of Jesus Christ. I don't have anything else. I have nothing to hang my hat up on and say, hey, I did this. No, I don't. I have nothing. So, you have anything you'd like to add before we kind of draw up into this end?
Nothing really to add, just that these parables are definitely something to be studied, to be looked at. They have unbelievable meaning in very short segments.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing what Jesus can do in a couple lines.
Of course, we shouldn't be surprised.
No.
That the Son of God is an unbelievable teacher. But that's who we put our faith in.
That's right.
And I don't know a lot, but I know that what I believe is he came to this earth, he died for us, and he was resurrected.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to hold on to.
That's where our faith is.
Because that's where our faith is.
That's right.
And we were talking about that in Romans, and if you look even the great men of the Bible, whether it be Noah, Abraham, Moses, David, they were imperfect people, but they had faith. They had faith in God.
They kept trusting him.
Yes, they trusted God.
Even though they fell down and...
Even when they may not have trusted God, they still trusted God.
Yeah, I know. And that seems like an oxymoron, but you and I both know. You don't know till you've been there, do you?
Yeah. Even when things are bad, they still trusted in God.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you so much for filling in for Steve this week. You might end up doing it next week. I don't know. Don't know the schedule, but stand by.
Okay.
Well, that will conclude this week's Journey with Christ, and we thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions, any comments, don't hesitate to give us a call or email us or Facebook us. Whatever how you want to get a hold of us, we're here for you. And on behalf of Sean and I, see you next week. God bless. Have a great week.